Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. This time, we're taking a close look at Lupin Ltd. We're going to try and create a detailed video overview, focusing on their recent performance, especially their FY24 results.
Sounds good.
And wow, we have so much to go through. We've got financial statements, annual reports. We've even got meeting minutes.
That is a lot of information.
It is. It's like a backstage pass to the company.
Yeah.
One thing that really stood out to me, though, was all the details about how shareholders can be involved. Like they even give instructions on attending and even speaking at their annual general meeting. Not every company does that.
Yeah, it really shows how much Lupin prioritizes transparency and keeps their stakeholders in the loop, especially in such a complicated industry like pharmaceuticals. It's pretty impressive.
Absolutely. So before we go any further, let's take a step back for anyone who might not know. Who exactly is Lupin Ltd.?
So Lupin Ltd. Was founded back in 1983. And since then, it's really become a big player in the global pharmaceutical world. In fact, they're the top-ranked Indian pharmaceutical company in the Philippines.
Wow, the Philippines. That's pretty amazing.
It is.
But what makes Lupin so special? What's, their main focus?
They specialize in something called complex generics, and they're particularly strong in the inhalation and injectables market.
Okay, so complex generics,
Yeah.
inhalation, and injectables.
That's right.
Got it.
And, that actually makes up a huge chunk of their U.S. portfolio, around 40%. And this focus is really strategic because the biosimilars market is projected to grow like crazy. We're talking a CAGR, compound annual growth rate of 12.5%.
Okay, so they're in a good spot for growth. But what about the rest of the world? What does their global footprint look like?
Their reach is pretty impressive, over 100 countries. The source material we have points out some interesting regional performance highlights. For instance, their revenue in Australia has been steadily growing at a 16% CAGR. And in the Philippines, where they hold that top spot, the pharmaceutical market is valued at USD 4.9 billion, with an annual growth rate of 8.7%.
Global reach and strategic market positioning. Sounds good so far. But how does their business model actually work? How do they make money?
Well, the core business is definitely pharmaceuticals.
Right. But I found something a little strange in the materials. It mentioned revenue streams from tractors, cranes, and engines. Am I misinterpreting something here? Is Lupin secretly a heavy machinery company on the side?
No. That's definitely not in the source material. Their main focus is pharmaceuticals, especially generics. However, they do provide a breakdown of their revenue by specific product categories and geographical regions, showing that they really understand their diverse market segments.
Okay, so no tractors, just pills. That makes much more sense.
Yeah.
But what about innovation? Are they just creating copies of existing drugs, or are they developing their own?
They're not just sticking to generics. They've got what they call a P2P business, short for partner to partner, which focuses on creating new molecules and unique drug combinations.
Ah, so they're pushing the boundaries beyond generics.
Exactly. It shows their commitment to innovation, going beyond simply producing more affordable versions of existing medications. And this P2P segment actually contributes a healthy 20% to their overall sales.
Yeah, 20%. That's a significant chunk. So they're playing both sides, offering affordable generics while also investing in cutting-edge research. Smart move. But let's talk about the money. How's all this translated into their actual financial performance? What do those FY24 numbers tell us?
Well, their FY24 numbers are pretty exciting. They achieved record-breaking sales, even surpassing the previous high point back in FY17.
That's amazing. What drove that growth? Just higher sales volume, or did they also boost their profitability?
The CFO's letter offers some great insights into that. It highlights the strategic steps they took to optimize costs, especially in manufacturing and R&D. These moves have significantly improved their margins, giving them a competitive edge.
That's really impressive. So how did these cost-saving measures impact key financial metrics? I'm talking about things like EBITDA margins, PAT, and their debt levels. Materials seem to have a ton of financial data, right? Should give us a good overall picture.
Absolutely. The financial disclosures were really thorough. We can definitely dive deep into those numbers and look at the trends in their EBITDA margins, their profit after tax, PAT, and how they've been managing their debt.
Awesome. So far, we see they're doing well financially, strategically placed in a growing market, and striking a balance between their core generics business and these innovative PDP endeavors. But one thing I'm still wondering about, we know they're #1 in the Philippines. But what about their overall market share globally? Are they dominating the worldwide market?
That's a great question. However, the source materials we have mainly focus on specific regional wins rather than giving us those overall market share figures. We'd need to dig a bit deeper to get that full picture of their global dominance.
Makes sense. But even without those exact numbers, it's clear that Lupin isn't just sitting still. They've been on a bit of an acquisition spree lately. I'm talking Medisol in France, two brands from Sanofi Nalcrum and Arain, all in the last year. It feels like they're really pushing to expand their presence in Europe and Canada. What's the strategy behind these acquisitions?
Well, from what we can tell, Lupin is using acquisitions very strategically to bolster specific product portfolios. They're particularly interested in complex injectables and respiratory medications.
So they're not just growing for the sake of growth.
Yeah.
They have a plan, using acquisitions to fill specific gaps. That's smart.
Exactly. And this targeted approach nicely complements their organic growth through that P2P business we talked about.
Right, it's a two-pronged approach.
Exact.
But acquisitions are just one part of the story. What about internal improvements and new initiatives?
They're definitely not neglecting that. They're investing a lot in digital transformation. In fact, they've implemented SAP S/4HANA, which is a huge deal for improving business agility and operational efficiency.
Yeah, I was also pretty impressed by their digital initiatives. They've got Lupin Diagnostics, boasting the highest percentage of NABL-accredited labs in India, plus Life, their digital therapeutics platform, and Atharvability, which is their neurorehabilitation center in Mumbai. It's like they're building a complete healthcare ecosystem. But let's not just focus on the positive stuff. We got to talk about the risks.
Right, of course.
I mean, the source material had a whole section dedicated to risk factors, and honestly, it was a bit overwhelming. How do they even keep track of all that?
It's a complex landscape for sure, but Lupin seems to have a good handle on the challenges they're facing. They categorize their risks into four main buckets: strategic, operational, financial, and compliance risks, and they give specific examples for each.
So they're not just being overly optimistic. They're acknowledging the potential downsides. What were some of the specific risks that stood out to you?
Some of the key ones highlighted were antimicrobial resistance stewardship, which is a big concern for the entire pharmaceutical industry, cybersecurity and data privacy in our age of AI, and then, of course, the huge issue of climate change.
You know, reading about that recent ransomware attack on a major Indian drug manufacturer was a real wake-up call. It shows just how vulnerable companies can be in this digital world and the potential impact of climate change, with places like Mumbai and Visakhapatnam facing risks of, saltwater inundation. That's pretty scary.
Absolutely. But it's important to remember that Lupin isn't just passively accepting these risks. They've got detailed risk assessment processes, they're investing heavily in cybersecurity, and they're taking steps to prepare for climate change. They're not just sitting around and hoping for the best.
That's good to hear. So that they're aware of the risks and taking concrete steps to mitigate them. Well, this deep dive has been super insightful already. We've covered a ton, but I'm sure there's still more to uncover.
We've only just scratched the surface. We still need to delve into the specifics of their manufacturing processes, their R&D pipeline, and their sustainability initiatives. There's so much more to explore.
All right, listeners, buckle up. This deep dive is just getting started. Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll uncover the secrets behind Lupin's manufacturing excellence and their groundbreaking approaches to drug development.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of Lupin Ltd. We were just discussing their growth strategy and how they're tackling potential risks. But a company's not just built on avoiding problems. Let's look at what really makes them successful in their manufacturing capabilities.
Going through the material about Lupin's manufacturing, I was really struck by their emphasis on innovation and efficiency. It's not just about churning out pills. They're really pushing the boundaries of how pharmaceuticals are made. It's clear they take pride in their manufacturing, and the material provided really went into great detail.
Yeah, their commitment to both quality and efficiency is impressive. They've got 12 manufacturing sites just in India alone, and each one seems to be a model of operational excellence. And the way they invest in cutting-edge technology shows how dedicated they are to staying ahead of the curve.
Speaking of cutting-edge tech, I came across something called a continuous flow reactor, which they're using at their Ankleshwar plant in India. This is pretty high-tech.
Those continuous flow reactors are fascinating. They allow for such precise control over the reaction conditions, temperature, pressure, how long the chemicals are reacting, leading to more consistent products and less waste. It's good for the company and the environment.
It's great to see them adopting these innovative approaches. And speaking of wins, I was really impressed by that example they gave where they completely redesigned the manufacturing process for an antidepressant. They went from 5 steps down to just 3.
Wow.
And the results were amazing. A 63% higher yield, they used 30% less raw material, and they generated 30% less residue per kilogram of product.
It's like they've figured out the formula for sustainable manufacturing. And it's not just about efficiency either. Their commitment to sustainability goes even further. Did you know that 10 of their Indian manufacturing sites use biomass briquette boilers for steam generation? And they're adding more.
That's incredible. They're truly walking the walk when it comes to using renewable energy. And it's not just about reducing their carbon footprint. It's about building a more resilient and sustainable supply chain. Which, speaking of resilience, brings me to their focus on product safety. I was really intrigued by their meticulous approach. All the details about good manufacturing practices, their robust quality management systems, and the emphasis on regulatory compliance.
They've got a dedicated team that keeps a close eye on all those key performance indicators related to compliance. Their goal is to have 0 warning letters or official action indicated issues by fiscal year 2025. They've even got this unique program called the Audit Readiness Film, which uses simulated audits to help their employees feel more confident when interacting with real auditors.
That's such a smart approach. It shows they're leaving nothing to chance when it comes to quality and compliance. But manufacturing is just one part of the story. Let's talk about their R&D efforts. What exciting new drugs are they working on?
Well, as we've already discussed, Lupin is a leader in complex generics, and their research and development efforts really reflect that. They're constantly working on more affordable versions of essential medications, and their track record is impressive.
Yeah, it's amazing that they launched 10 complex inhalation products in key markets: the US, Canada, Europe, and Australia, all in just FY24. And one of their big launches was tiotropium, the first generic version of the Spiriva HandiHaler approved in both the US and Canada. Making these life-saving medications more accessible is truly commendable.
Absolutely. But they're not limiting themselves to just generics. Remember their PDP business, which stands for partner to partner. It focuses on developing brand new molecules and combinations for unmet medical needs.
So they're not just copying existing drugs, they're coming up with entirely new solutions. That's really exciting. What sorts of medical needs are they targeting with this research?
It's hard to say for sure without seeing their full R&D pipeline, but it's clear they're committed to innovation in this area. Their approach seems to be a good mix of internal innovation and strategic acquisitions to build a strong and diverse pipeline of new products.
It seems like they're covering all their bases. But it's not all about the science and clinical trials, right? Lupin seems to really get the human side of healthcare. I saw info on their patient-centric programs, like Fight TB for tuberculosis patients and Legal ARCs, providing legal information to healthcare professionals.
And we can't forget their digital platforms. Like Life, their digital therapeutics platform, and Eighth Hour of Ability, the neurorehabilitation center. They're not just making drugs, they're creating a whole support system for patients.
It's an impressive approach. They seem dedicated to making a real difference in people's lives. But we can't forget about the people who make all of this happen. Lupin's employees.
Yes, their human capital. It seems Lupin's just as committed to investing in their employees as they are in their products and technologies.
From what I've seen, they offer a whole range of programs focused on employee development, training, and well-being. There's even a program called Ascent, which partners with top universities to offer fully sponsored PhD opportunities to their R&D staff.
That's incredible. What a fantastic opportunity. And they also have a global talent management and leadership development program designed to identify and support high-potential employees.
It really sounds like they're fostering a dynamic and supportive work environment, a real culture of learning and growth, which is so important in a fast-paced industry like this. And it's not just about professional development. They also prioritize diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Their DEI efforts are commendable. They've got initiatives like Unstoppables, a self-defense program specifically for their female employees, and they celebrate International Women's Day, Men's Day, and Pride Month.
It's clear that Lupin's building a workplace where everyone feels valued, respected, and empowered. But a company's success isn't just measured by profits and growth. It's also about their impact on the world.
Exactly. And that brings us to an area where Lupin truly shines, their commitment to sustainability and social responsibility.
I was honestly blown away by the scope of their ESG initiatives. It's not just a checklist for them. Sustainability is woven into everything they do. It's inspiring to see a company taking such a holistic approach.
One of their main focuses is minimizing their environmental footprint. They've put a lot of resources into renewable energy, water conservation, and waste reduction. They've even achieved a significant reduction in their Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions.
That's amazing. They're taking concrete action on climate change, which is so crucial, especially with their manufacturing operations in areas vulnerable to climate risks.
They've done comprehensive climate risk assessments to pinpoint potential threats and are actively putting preparedness measures in place. Things like retrofitting their buildings to handle extreme weather and having solid business interruption plans.
It's like they're proactively future-proofing their operations. But their sustainability efforts go beyond the environment, too. They're also heavily involved in social initiatives. Tell me more about those.
Through the Lupin Foundation, they've implemented a whole rural development program in India. It's reached a staggering 1.57 million people across more than 4,771 villages. They're focusing on education, healthcare, and economic empowerment, truly making a difference in people's lives.
That's just incredible. It's heartwarming to see them making such a tangible impact in the communities where they operate. And their social initiatives seem to tie in really well with their core business. Programs like providing access to affordable antiretroviral and anti-TB medications demonstrate their commitment to improving health outcomes for vulnerable populations.
They're living up to their mission of transforming hope into healing. And it's not just about charity. They're integrating ethical considerations into every part of their business, from their supply chain to their marketing practices.
Their dedication to ethical conduct, transparency, and accountability is truly commendable. I was particularly interested in their detailed whistleblower policy, which ensures that any concerns are addressed quickly and fairly.
It seems like they're really striving to be a model corporate citizen, setting a high standard for the whole pharmaceutical industry. However, even with all this great work, we can't forget about the bottom line. It's time to dive into their financial performance and look at the numbers.
Yes, let's get into the financials. We know their FY24 sales were record-breaking, but what about the specifics? What trends should we be looking at?
It's not enough to just look at revenue growth. We need to understand their profitability, their debt levels, and their overall financial health. Thankfully, the materials you provided have a lot of great insights on these topics.
Perfect. Let's break it down and see what these numbers reveal. Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into Lupin Ltd. We've talked about their amazing manufacturing, their commitment to innovation and sustainability, and now it's time to put on our financial analyst hats and dig into their FY24 performance.
Time to crunch some numbers. We've already touched on their record-breaking sales in FY24, beating their previous high back in FY17. But revenue's just one piece of the puzzle.
All right, we got to look at profitability. That's where things get really interesting, yeah.
Absolutely. And one key metric here is EBITDA margin, which stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. Basically, it tells us how profitable their operations are.
So, like, how much money they're actually making from their core business before all the accounting stuff.
Exactly. And in FY24, Lupin's EBITDA margin showed some really nice improvement, thanks partly to their strategic cost optimization efforts.
Yeah, the CFO was pretty happy about those cost-saving initiatives in his letter to shareholders. Clearly, they've been focused on running a tight ship.
And those efforts are definitely reflected in their better margins. But profitability is only one side of the coin. We also need to look at their debt levels.
Right, because too much debt can be risky, especially if the economy takes a hit. How's Lupin doing in that area?
The materials you gave us show a really positive trend in their debt management. They've been actively reducing their debt, and they seem to be in a pretty solid financial position.
That's great news. But what about their actual bottom line, their profit after tax, or PAT? Are all these efforts leading to more cash in the bank?
They are. Their PAT has also jumped up in FY24, which shows that their focus on margins and efficiency is really paying off.
So they're growing, they're profitable, and they're handling their debt well. Sounds like they're hitting all the right notes.
They're definitely in a strong position. But like with any investment, there are always risks to keep in mind.
And we've already talked about their thorough approach to risk management, right? They seem to have a good grasp of the challenges they face, like antimicrobial resistance, cybersecurity threats, climate change, and they're taking steps to address those things head on.
Exactly. They're not just crossing their fingers and hoping for the best. They're actively tackling those challenges, which is so important for their long-term success.
So what's the final takeaway here? What can we conclude about Lupin Ltd. Based on everything we've learned?
Well, in short, Lupin is a company on the move. They're demonstrating strong financial performance, they've got an ambitious growth strategy, and they're deeply committed to innovation, sustainability, and social responsibility.
It's pretty inspiring to see a company that can balance making profits with making a positive difference in the world.
I agree. It's not just about shareholder value for them. They're working to create a better future for their employees, their communities, and the planet as a whole.
It's really refreshing to see a company with such a holistic approach to business. They're not just playing the game, they're changing it.
And that's what makes them such a potential force for good in the future of healthcare. They're embracing innovation in drug development, digital health, sustainable practices, and ethical conduct. It's really impressive.
It's clear that Lupin is a company with a vision, and they're bringing that vision to life with passion and a lot of careful planning. They're a great example of what can be achieved when a company combines financial smarts with a genuine desire to make a difference.
For anyone out there looking for companies that are both profitable and purpose-driven, Lupin Limited is definitely one to keep an eye on.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into Lupin Limited. We've covered a lot today, from their humble beginnings to their global ambitions. But this is just a snapshot of where they are right now.
The world of pharmaceuticals is always changing, and I have no doubt that Lupin will keep adapting and innovating to stay ahead of the curve.
So stay tuned, listeners. The Lupin Limited story is far from over, and we'll be here to break down the next chapter. Until next time, the Deep Dive, signing off.